Thanks, everyone. Lovely to be here and to see so many familiar faces again. This presentation is titled "The Best Bang for the Buck Ideas on the LabVIEW Idea Exchange." My name is Petru Tarabuta. I'm originally from Romania, but I went to the University of Sheffield, studied an electronic and electrical engineering degree there, and I've been living and working in the UK ever since. I'm a CLA and CTD, and I work through my own limited company, Robusto Systems, helping customers implement LabVIEW systems with a bit of C# and SQL where needed as well, and test-hand, of course. This presentation will discuss some of the best bang for the buck LabVIEW ideas. By LabVIEW idea, we mean an idea posted on the LabVIEW Idea Exchange. A high bang for the buck idea is one that provides a relatively large benefit for a relatively small amount of implementation effort. Each idea has a bang for the buck metric, and this metric can also be referred to as the benefit to effort ratio, of course. And the higher the benefit to effort ratio, the better. Measuring the benefit to effort ratio is virtually impossible due to it being virtually impossible to measure the benefit to the LabVIEW community. Like, how do you actually measure how much benefit we all get by adding a new feature? It's virtually impossible to measure. However, we can get very good estimates just by thinking about features, maybe doing some surveys here and there, and just measuring usage as well. But we only measure the usage after the feature is implemented. So before, when we decide what to implement, we just make an estimate, and we can measure later. Okay. This presentation will not discuss valuable ideas, very valuable ideas that are difficult to implement. For example, dark mode for LabVIEW. We all want that. We all love that. It's amazing, but I'm sure it's difficult to implement. So that's great, and can be the subject of future presentations, but we're not going to discuss this type of idea. Similarly, add IntelliSense support to the property node. Yeah, it would be amazing, but again, probably quite a lot of work. Similarly, all windows should be resizable. So, in the LabVIEW editor, there's lots of different windows, and many of them are not resizable. They're like a fixed size, and that's it. Some of them are resizable, though, and they are amazing. Again, making all of them resizable would be great, but it's a lot of work. Okay, so what's the purpose of the presentation? Well, to popularize several LabVIEW ideas that may not be widely known, to promote the LabVIEW Idea Exchange as a learning tool, carefully reading through the LabVIEW ideas and their associated comments. And sometimes some ideas have dozens of comments, page after page of comments going back and forth between different LabVIEW experts around the world discussing the pros and cons and different thinking behind an idea. It's a fantastic learning experience, and I highly recommend it. I've started kind of scanning the Idea Exchange or systematically reading it maybe a couple of years ago, and I feel it's been a fantastic learning experience for me as well, just to dive in and see what people are discussing. And inevitably, you will learn things that LabVIEW can do already that you didn't know. it can. So yeah, it's a great experience. Also, the purpose of the presentation is, in the event that one or more people from NI will watch the presentation, obviously I know that people from NI are here already, and I very much enjoy speaking to them, and that's fantastic. Especially people from the LabVIEW R&D team, or people who are in direct contact with the team. This presentation may serve as a gentle nudge towards having more LabVIEW ideas implemented in each new LabVIEW version. Can serve as a data point that the LabVIEW Idea Exchange is important, it does matter, and we professional LabVIEW programmers, we care about it. We wish to see more ideas being implemented. Also, to take advantage of the renewed interest that NI has shown recently in the Idea Exchange, which is fantastic. For example, this idea that I proposed maybe 6 months ago or so, I can't remember. Let's see, it was proposed in June last year. And it was implemented already in LabVIEW 2025 Q1, and it's just an example of them, of NI LabVIEW R&D team listening and implementing things, which is fantastic. It's a very small change in this high def where we can define the font properties. instead of the color being represented by a U32 numeric, is now represented by a U32 color box constant. And it just makes things a bit simpler and easier to do. So obviously very simple change, but it shows the principle that it seems things are, again, more active on the idea exchange, which is great. Some stats about the LabVIEW Idea Exchange. The total number of ideas with new status at the moment, there are 2,977 ideas with new status. New status means they have been posted, they have been voted on, so people may have been giving them kudos and commenting, but they haven't been, like the NI team hasn't yet started developing them, or there isn't a plan to develop them, and so on. But yeah, that's how many ideas there are. Bear in mind, a lot of them are perhaps not so well explained. There's a lot of there's a lot of ideas there that maybe are not so well explained. There's just a few lines of text and they're not rigorous enough. But still, in those almost 3,000 ideas, there's lots of ideas, genuinely good ideas. Okay, number of new ideas with at least 300 kudos, 12 ideas. Small number of ideas with more than 300 kudos. With more than 200 kudos, 34 ideas. More than 100 kudos, 182 ideas. And with more than 50 kudos, a good amount of 544 ideas. And I feel this is kind of almost a baseline. Like if an idea reaches 50 kudos, it means it's fairly popular. Partly because in a way you could say, well, 50 votes, 50 kudos is not that large of a number. However, if you think that the vast majority of probably of LabVIEW programmers, especially maybe beginner programmers, they don't even know the LabVIEW Idea Exchange exists. They don't go there. So actually these votes are almost like they represent, I think, a larger number of people who may wish that to come true. It's just coming from the, let's say, the more seasoned programmers or those who are interested in scanning the forums and liking things. Okay, and the oldest new idea is from January 2009. The most recent one is from last month. So now I'm going to switch to an Excel file that I prepared, where I selected 40 of my favorite, let's say, ideas, the ideas that I believe provide the best value for money, like we said. This ranking is very subjective. It's what I think is relatively low effort to be implemented and what I think could provide a good benefit. But obviously, I'm sure all of us could come up with slightly different rankings. Also, this is not comprehensive by any means. I selected 40 of them, but I'm sure we could add, we could find another 20 or another 40 very good value ideas on the exchange. So it's just a starting point, let's say. And this file, this Excel file, which I'm going to switch to in a minute, together with the presentation slides, they are already in a public GitHub repository that I published this morning. The link to these files, it will be in the last slide. So you can even download. If you wish, you could clone the repository right now and have a look at the files as we go along. Yeah. So with that said, we can jump into this list of ideas. So I will minimize this, and I will open the Excel file. And I've already opened the first 10 links to the first 10 ideas. I've already opened them in the browser. So we can now just start looking at some of these ideas and kind of what they're about. So in no particular order. So it's not like from best to worst or anything like that. It's just almost a bit of a random order. We can have a look at a few ideas as much as time allows. Obviously, this presentation is 45 minutes, so we probably won't have time to go through all 40 of them, that's for sure. But maybe if we cover 10 or 15, we'll at least get a flavor of the sort of features that are there. Yeah, so the first one, for example, is this idea where you can see it has tons of kudos. It's one of the most kudos idea on the whole idea exchange. The fact that we should have a button in the taskbar to help us abort all VIs. And notice it's been posted in 2011. I know the text is very small, but it's in 2011, so that's almost 14 years ago now, because it's in March 2011, so it's going to be 14 years soon. Yeah, it's something that's so useful to all of us, and yeah, it'd be really useful to have this. And I don't think it will take that much to implement something like this. Why do I say that? Well, let me share another link, which I don't think I opened yet. But if I open this link, I probably should have opened this link in advance, but bear with me. I'm going to open it now. So what you can see in this link is a post I made on the forums like a few months ago. I was just questioning whether it's possible to programmatically bring up this dialogue that we now have in LabVIEW. We've had this new dialogue for the last couple of years or so. It's a new feature, relatively new feature, and every time I see it and I get it, I'm thankful for it. I'm like, wow, that's fantastic, because you get this window when you close a project and you have some VIs running in the background, and that's very typical if you use, for example, DQMH, which I use a lot. It's very common that you forgot to stop some of your modules, or there was a bug that prevented them from stopping, and now they're running in the background. They don't have a GUI, and they're kind of zombie modules running there in the background, and you don't see where they are. You don't know how many there are. Well, if you then close your project, if you hit the X button, you get this window which tells you exactly what's running, which is fantastic. And then if you do close, it closes all those VIs and closes the project as well. So the problem is, ideally I would like to get this window and close my running VIs without closing the project as well, but that's not possible at the moment. So my post here is about asking if that's possible programmatically via some sort of invoke node or method or property node. I didn't get a response yet, so it doesn't seem to be possible at the moment. However, it's clear that LabVIEW somehow internally can show you the list of all the running VIs very clearly, very neatly, and it can close all the VIs for you. So the functionality is there, and if we go back to the idea here, basically, this is what that idea asks for. It does just give us a button to abort everything without closing the project necessarily. Just abort what's running, but leave us the project open. It shouldn't take that long to implement, I don't think. I'm sure there's some complicated, nothing is ever simple, I know that. And I know that we as users of LabVIEW, we only see the tip of the iceberg, really, when it comes to implementing a new feature, because any new feature you add in a project, in a program as widely used as LabVIEW, it needs to be thoroughly tested. You need to create unit tests for it. You need to think about all the possible side effects. You need to think whether there's one customer in Antarctica whose code will break because of your change. So yeah, I know there's a lot of implications, but even still, these sort of ideas I think should be actioned, could be actioned much more quickly. But fair enough. This is the first one. So let's go to the next idea, which I think we have here. This is this idea that it requests a visual indication that some code is hiding behind your structure, if that makes sense. So if you see here, we have a formula that contains this weight function there, right? But there's nothing stopping you at the moment from just resizing it for you, making it smaller. And that has disappeared. It's still there, but you don't see it. And it can be a problem. It can genuinely be a problem. You could forget totally about that. It could live in your code for the next 10 years, and you just don't know about it. Yes, there is a VI analyzer test to test for this, and it flags it up, and you then go and solve it. So yes, please use VI analyzer. Of course, it's a great thing to use VI analyzer, but it's such an important, high importance thing that I think the editor should allow you to see from the very beginning. I don't know if it can be seen, but there's like a red border that the idea proposes. Like we should see some sort of red border or some sort of visual indication that something is hiding behind the scenes. And there is another idea very similar that has maybe 100 kudos or 150. This one has 393. That goes even further and says, you know what, my VI should break. The runner should break if I have hidden code. So it goes one step further. I tend to agree actually with that one. Maybe it's best to just break and prevent this from happening altogether. I don't know if that's too strict, but at least we should have some visual indication. And again, you would think it maybe not. It shouldn't be that difficult to implement this behavior. But yeah, okay. Let's move on to the next idea. This idea is from Jack Dunaway in America. He proposed very many brilliant ideas, and you can see the level, the quality of the explanations he goes through, and the graphics he produced are almost second to none. They're fantastic. So what he proposes here, for example, you say you have this unbundle by name node and a bundle by name node, right? We use them all the time. How do you go about and reorder the order of these 5 elements. Maybe you want to reorder them, like he shows here. You have a timestamp here at the top, but you're wiring it at the bottom. You don't want that. You want to reorder the timestamp to be at the bottom. Simple thing, right? What you need to do now is right-click there, say remove element, drag here another element, faff about, wire, move things. It takes like 20 seconds to do this simple thing. He proposes, you know what? Give me these the tool to be a bit more intelligent, and I can actually select an item and then click and drag it, and it will just drag it in order, which is behavior we're used to from many other applications and software, right? You click and drag it to where you need it to be. Again, I'm not saying this is trivial. This requires thought and implementation, but it should be well within the realm of possibility for the programmers in the team. And this has been posted in 2010. It was posted in 2010. To also be fair, many of these ideas were actually implemented in LabVIEW NXG. So to be absolutely clear, so, and I did spend a lot of effort implementing lots of these ideas. So that's credit to them. But unfortunately, as we all know, NXG was canceled at the end of the day, and now we don't have them in the original LabVIEW either. So it's a shame that many of them, including this one, this was implemented in NXG, but we still don't have it in actual LabVIEW. So yeah, it kind of needs to be re-implemented again, perhaps. Okay, so if we go to the next one, this is from Jim Kring. I'm sure we all know Jim from JKI, and he also has maybe 5 or 6 or more really brilliant ideas that are highly kudoed. And this one, for example, asks for a native way to compare two strings in a case-insensitive way. So at the moment, if you compare two strings, the comparison is case-sensitive. So it matters what capitals you're using and so on. Of course, you can maybe make both of your inputs lowercase, like he's showing here, and then you have a case-insensitive comparison. But it's, again, a bit unwieldy. We do it all the time. We might as well have something there. It shouldn't be that difficult to add this sort of behavior. Moreover, we have this functionality already in the case structure. If you know, when you have a case structure and you're driving the case structure via a string case selector, there's a right-click option on the case structure that says do case-insensitive matching, which is exactly what this wants. So, the functionality can be implemented, but yeah, again, it's very, very useful idea. Okay, let's move on. So the next idea from Neil Pate. Again, I'm sure many of us know Neil. I know for a fact many of us know Neil, and again, a fantastic programmer. And he has a number of fantastic ideas as well on the Idea Exchange, which is great. This one is posted in 2009, and what it asks for is, when we right-click in LabVIEW, we have lots of right-click menus to do lots of stuff, which is great, but we don't have any sort of glyphs around the options. It's all text. And it can be very difficult sometimes, like you have a list of like 20 options to choose from, and you know the name of the option you're looking for, but you still need to scan through the list, and it takes you like 10 seconds, and you don't know, and so on. What he's asking for is if we could have some glyphs on some of the most popular options, that kind of directs your brain and your muscle memory to be much more quick when you use these features. So what he proposes here is, for example, this blue plus sign here and this red X sign in the menu. And yeah, it would be really useful, but yeah, it's not there. Actually, in preparation for this presentation, I commented on this idea, and Darren Nuttinger very quickly replied. So kudos to him. He very quickly replied saying that actually, then LabVIEW recently looked at this idea, but they put it on the backlog because it involves quite a lot of work, he said. It involves quite a lot of work to add the ability to show graphics, essentially. That's what it comes to. At the moment, we're showing text, and here we want to add graphics onto text. So, okay, I understand maybe this is not so easy to implement as we think, but at the same time, once this ability is implemented in right-click menus, probably it will be available in all right-click menus, not in just this one on a case structure. This is just an example, but pretty much in every single right-click menu, including possibly the runtime menus we can create for our own EXEs which have the same limitation currently. You can create your own menus, but they're only text options. You cannot add graphics to them. So, okay, maybe this one, I believed it was relatively easy to implement. Maybe it's not so easy to implement, but still, it will provide a great benefit. Okay, next one, also from Jim Kring. He suggests that, you know what, like, we know that it's best practice when you want to mean, I want an empty string, you should use the empty string constant, not just leave a constant that has nothing inside of it, because visually you cannot tell, does it have, is it an empty string, or does it have 3 spaces in there? You don't know, or maybe a tab character or a new line character, you don't know. That's why it's always best to use the empty string constant, because that is clear, and you know the value of that constant. And what he proposes here is, you know what, if I have an empty string constant and double click on it, let me like transform it automatically into a normal string constant where I can type my text, and vice versa. If I have a normal string constant and I remove all the text from it, it should automatically go back to the empty string constant. And yeah, that would be a fantastic feature as well. Yeah, that would be a nice. We have a really nice reply from Aristos Q, which I'm sure many of us know, and yeah, he was amazing, and I mean, he's still amazing, but he's not in the LabVIEW R&D team anymore. But when he was providing so much detailed information, and he seems to suggest here in his comment that if they had thought of this feature before, they would have implemented it, but kind of the boat had sailed, and that's why they hadn't done it. But in any case, it's a good idea. Okay, let's see another idea. This one is about needing to have explicit declaration references on our block diagram. So what does that mean? Well, at the moment, if you put declarations on your front panel, like this box here, so it's a box, it's a decoration, it doesn't have any functionality behind it, but still it's something on the front panel. Maybe you want to show it, maybe you want to hide it, maybe you want to move it to the left or to the right, depends on what you're doing. You cannot easily do that. Why? Because you cannot easily get a reference to it, to manipulate it via property nodes. There are some tricks to do it, and some declarations can be manipulated via VI server, via the editor, but it's very cumbersome. And what this idea asks for is just treat them like a proper object and give us a proper reference to them, so we can actually deal with them properly. Yeah, that would be really nice. Okay, now another one which should be super simple to implement. Maybe this is the easiest one so far that we decided to implement. So this is just about the icon of this node. So it's a primitive node. It's not a VI. It's a node, and it's the rotate one, the array node. So it just takes an array, rotates it, and the node works great. But the input and the output, notice they are not aligned. So you feed your array like this, and it comes out a little bit. I know, OCD, right? This is a tiny thing, and it doesn't matter functionally. Like your code will execute, but why not just align them? And you see, this idea was supposed to 2014. Has a lot of kudos, and how long will it take them to implement this? It's a visual change. It's not a functional change. Surely this won't break anything. You just implement it, and you say to one developer, hey, implement this. Tomorrow you say, have you done it? You should have done it, because you have the whole day for this, and then you move on. But it hasn't been done. I know. The argument is, well, we have more important things to work on. I'll get to that later in near the end of the presentation. I'll say my philosophy around this. I think I still have maybe 20 minutes, Chris. Is that fine? Or yeah. I'm happy to stop whenever needed. Just to mention 15. So I think we might be able to cover another maybe 5-6 more, and then I'll finish with some last thoughts. But yeah, that's there. Okay, then the next one. Oh, this is really nice, and would be really nice if it would be implemented. Now, as we know, there are certain nodes in LabVIEW that execute even if you feed an error into them. Typically, these nodes are the ones that close a reference or destroy a reference or close a file. And it's very, very good that they do execute even on error, because otherwise you would leave all sorts of file references open, other DVR open, and so on. So you do want them to execute when they have an error. That's great. But the problem is you cannot see, you don't know which one executes on error, which one executes normally, which is it skips execution if there was an error. You don't see that unless you do Control-H, go to the context help, and look at the context help, and you read this line. That's what I have to do now all the time, and I'm sure many of us do that, to check that whether this node executes on error or does not execute on error. And the idea is for, just give us an indication. Again, it's an aesthetic change to the item, but just give us an indication whether that runs on error or not. And again, it would just be very, very good to have that. And again, it's just an aesthetic change, not just to one node design. There's probably a few dozen nodes that would require this, but it will be a great change. Okay, let's go to the next one. Yeah, this is another one. So I'm sure all of us have faced this issue where, yes, you have an array of constants, and you say, realize, oh, no, I need to delete like a few elements in my array. How do you do that? How do you delete a few elements from the array? You need to right-click one element at a time. You right-click, and you go data operations, delete element. That's one time. Then right-click on the next one, data operation, delete that. Then the third one. Takes again like 20 seconds to do 3 elements. What if you need to delete 10 elements out of 100 elements array? You're just clicking around there, thinking, oh, this is so slow and so boring, right? Why can't we just select a few of them? Maybe using Control Select or Shift Select to select a range, and then you delete all of them in one go, right? We're so used to this behavior in pretty much any application. If you think of Excel, for example, how would it be if in Excel you had to select one cell at a time and hit delete? You would go crazy, right? You select a bunch and then you delete in one go. And this asks for that, and that would be great to be implemented as well. Okay, so I think those were the first 10. Let's try to load the next 5 or so. Let's see if we find the next 5. So yeah, let's open that one. That's 11, 12, 13. 14. Okay, let's be on the conservative side in terms of let's not be too ambitious because the time is running very quickly, of course. So let's look at the next 4 and then maybe finish with some talk. So this idea asks for the ability to perform block diagram cleanup, but only on the wires. So at the moment you can do Control-U and it cleans up your whole diagram. You can select a rectangle to say, you know what, I want you to clean just this part, and you do Control-U, and it cleans just that part, which is fantastic. It's great that we have that ability. But when you do that, it doesn't clean just the wires. It cleans up all the objects as well, which means it can move stuff in your diagram. This one asks for basically leave my objects where they are, just move the wires, reroute the wires in your neat, nice way, from the auto router. Again, you wouldn't internally, that functionality is kind of there already, right? You just need to expose it somehow because we know we can route wires. So all this is asking for essentially is just a small entry into a functionality that's already there, just to say, you know what, don't move my nodes, pretend they've been moved already, and then route the wires, which is what we're doing already anyway. So again, it's a really, really nice idea. Okay, let's move to the next one. Oh, this will be so useful. So drag and drop to replace by Steve Schmidt as well. So I have to mention that he has a number of great ideas as well, and I know I'm sure many of us know him as well. Yeah, which is great. So just as a taking a step back, on the front panel, when on the front panel you have a control, let's say a numeric input, a numeric control. You can grab another numeric control that perhaps looks differently, has different colors of text and so on. You can select that one, do Control-X to cut it, and then paste it, Control-V, on top of the existing one. And that replaces the control and everything that it was linked to on the block diagram. That function is absolutely amazing. It's so useful. But it only works on the front panel. So Control-X, Control-V to paste things on top of one another only works in the front panel. This idea basically asks for the same thing, but on the block diagram. Just to select something and paste it on top of this. For example, imagine you have this sub VI here, and I have another sub VI that has the same connector pane, so it's compatible. And I want to just drag it on top of that, and it replaces it, wires it again, and that's it. That would be even quicker than having to go, control space, quick drop, and type the name and do control P. Of course, that's the quickest in many circumstances. But in sometimes you might have a few VIs next to each other on the block diagram, and you cannot just select one of them and do control X and paste it on top of the other. That would be super useful, and that goes not just for VIs in the block diagram, but for example for constants on the block diagram. All sorts of things on the block diagram would benefit from this control X, control V functionality, which is great. Okay, let's go to this one. This is from Mads as well. He has a number of brilliant ideas as well, Mads. And he basically asks in this one that, we have our multi-column list boxes and our single-column list boxes, and at the moment, ordering them, like changing the order of elements, is a pain. You have to program that yourself. You need to provide. There's ways to do it, but you can spend a whole day just implementing that. He's asking basically, we're all used to now in different, for example, in Excel, again, we have an Excel table. You can select the order of the column, and it rearranges everything based on the order of that column. And often you can click on the header of the column to change the, whether it's order in ascending order or descending order. He's basically asking for that here. I don't think it would take that long to implement this sort of idea either. Of course, there's some coding needs to be done in the background, but it's not so. It's a very well-defined feature that wouldn't have side effects on other things as well. So I think that's a key. By the way, I just want to mention this, that a large part of what makes an idea easy to implement, or let's say relatively easy, is if it has little to no side effect on other functionality, then it has a good chance of being relatively easy to implement. If it has impact on lots of other areas of LabVIEW, that makes it very complicated to implement that. But if it's narrow and targeted and it doesn't touch other things, then it should be kind of relatively straightforward to implement. And let's cover this one lastly, and then we'll finish with some thoughts. This is again one idea from Jim Pring. I'm sure we all face this, where you make a window modal, and it works great when you run that window and it pops up, and then you click OK or whatever, and it goes out. It's great. But what happens when you have a window that's modal, and it's there in the background somewhere in your large project, and you run your main VI, and now it pops up when it shouldn't, just because you run the main VI of your project, and because it's modal and it's loaded into memory, it pops up, and you're absolutely stuck. You cannot do anything apart kill LabVIEW using Task Manager, right? How many times? I'm sure this must have happened to me like at least 50 times. And although I know it and I'm aware of this VI and I try to avoid it, it still happens occasionally. So he just asks for here an option, modal when called, as in when this VI actually starts running, that's when it should become modal. Not just because it's loaded into memory and it's ready to run, it shouldn't become modal then. It should become modal only when it's actually running. It would be great to have this option. And with this, so I think we covered the first 14 line items in that Excel. There's 40, and as I said, you can easily find another 20, another 40 very good ideas that are relatively easy to implement. But yeah, I think this gives a kind of a picture of what's available and just the quality of the ideas, and also the time that people put into creating these things. Like, I've created a few ideas myself over the last few years, and I know just how much time it takes and the effort to create a nice picture, to edit it, and so on. It takes a lot of time. And then when people comment, you have to reply, maybe explain your idea further, and so on. So we need to appreciate the effort that enthusiastic and committed users like Jim and like the many others we've seen have put into sharing their thoughts. Yeah, we need to appreciate that, which is great. So now I will go back to the presentation. And I will try to finish in the next few minutes. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to run from the beginning. I meant to run from the current slide, which was this slide. So finally, before we finish, I would like to mention an anecdote. So once when I was in high school, my cohort's mathematics teacher asked us a question. He said, what order should one use to tackle the problems in the upcoming 2-hour math test? What is the best order for tackling questions in a timed test? A bit of background: a typical math test back then consisted of several, perhaps up to 10 math questions, usually arranged in order of increasing difficulty. So the first few problems were relatively easy, then it got harder and harder. The last ones were really, really hard. Which problems seemed easy or hard also depending on your particular preparation. Maybe you studied one chapter more than another. Maybe you liked geometry more than trigonometry. Maybe you did calculus better than something else. So it depends very much on yourself whether something looked easy or hard, right? Because you don't know, once you study something really well, even something that looked hard originally, it's a piece of cake because you are very confident you know how to do it. So it's up to each one of, even though generally, yeah, they range from easy to hard, still it mattered from person to person which ones were actually hard or not. And then we, the pupils, have to provide handwritten, fully worked out solutions, sometimes pages long for a single problem, and obviously no calculators or formula sheets were allowed. Okay, so after letting us discuss for a few minutes between ourselves and provide some answers, he provided the answer. One should start by scanning the whole paper. One should identify the questions that one is most confident in solving quickly. In other words, one should identify the problems that seem easiest to him or her. One should tackle first and foremost these questions. Questions that seem difficult or that have no clear solution or with no end in sight should be tackled only after all the easier questions were answered fully and completely, and you double check them. You make sure that you're getting all the marks that you could get. So this approach has several benefits. One is more likely to gain all the marks they can gain at that moment in time. Now, this approach will not make you score 100%, or magically, of course not. But if, say, you had enough knowledge to score 70% on the test, and the other 30% you just didn't know, you didn't study that chapter, you just didn't know, you couldn't solve it, that's fine. But if you could score 70, then make sure you do score it. By focusing on what you know, what seems easy, you accumulate all the points you can in as little time as possible. This leaves you a finite, well-bounded amount of time to spend on the hard or the esoteric questions and to explore various solutions that may or may not lead to a result. And you do that at the end of the test. The key idea is we should not prioritize tasks that have no clear reward, i.e. the hard questions. We should prioritize tasks that have a high likelihood of providing a reward. Of course, we should do our best to solve the hard problems too. It doesn't mean just be lazy, don't solve anything that's hard. No, do your best to solve them, but only after you make sure you secured all the marks you could by answering properly all your questions, all the easy questions. I believe that most people, myself included, take this approach intuitively in various situations in life, of course. This is not rocket science. I'm not saying this is a novel concept. I'm sure most of us do it intuitively all the time. However, for me, it was very useful to hear this advice being spelled out, being actually stated. And it stayed with me ever since. And I followed it virtually in all other high school tests and then university assessments and so on and so forth, and applied generally more broadly in life as well. Okay, so how is this relevant to LabVIEW Ideas? Well, in my humble opinion, and I should use this technique described above a bit more often. Internally, and I should rank these ideas not just by the number of kudos, but by the benefit to effort ratio. This is key because, for example, dark mode for LabVIEW may have a high number of kudos, but and rightly so. It's a fantastic idea, and I want it. But it will take a lot more effort to implement than some of the ideas we discussed here, where it's just a matter of drawing something a bit differently or changing a few pixels, right? So tackle the easy ones first. And I, in my opinion, could implement many more of these easy, straightforward ideas, the easy pickings, the low-hanging fruit, if you will. Yeah, it doesn't bode well when ideas that take one program or a few days of implementation effort have not been prioritized even 15 years after they were proposed, and they have hundreds of kudos as well. It just kind of is frustrating, and yeah, it would be better if they were implemented. Okay, it would be fantastic to see, and I implement perhaps 5 to 10 of these long-hanging fruit ideas in each new LabVIEW version, so every 6 months. This will slowly clear the backlog of good ideas and will prove to the community that NI is listening and is doing everything they can to improve LabVIEW. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to bash NI or anyone here, obviously, but I'm sure most of us feel passionately about this. We use this tool every single day of our lives, right? and we want it to be as best as it can. And when you see a great idea sitting there idly for 15 years, it kind of drives you nuts. It's like, why didn't you implement? Why didn't you say one person, you implement this, and tomorrow you have it done in 15 years? Like, they should have done that. Okay, and that was the end. And this is the link to the GitHub repository. It contains 2 files, essentially, just the PowerPoint presentation and the Excel file we looked at before. So thank you so much, and please, I will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
If we've seen some ideas on there that we think are really good, what's the best way for us to help promote them and push them, I guess?
I think number one is to actually provide a kudo, because I've seen many people who almost filter their kudo before NI does. What do I mean by that? They might see 10 ideas that they like, and they say, I won't kudo each one of them. I'll kudo just one of them because I don't want to confuse the message. Like I out of 10 ideas that are all good, I will kudo only one. My approach is be very liberal with your kudo. It doesn't cost anything to give a kudo. It just takes a click, which is so simple. So just kudo everything that you, even if it's a marginal benefit, or you feel like, yeah, I might use this feature once in a year. But if it's a net benefit, no matter how small, just give it a kudo, and you will see that naturally more people will highlight the really good ideas, and they will surface anyway. So you don't have to kind of pre-filter that yourself. Another thing I would say is maybe comment on the ideas as well. So if it impacts you and if you feel strongly about it, you could say, you could comment and say, I definitely like this idea, or I faced this issue like 5 times in the last month or so, and I would benefit from it. So I think that is just one way to bring attention and provide data points for NI, because I'm sure they have probably some sort of metric where they scan automatically the pages, and they say, look, we have 100 more comments this month, or 50 new ideas this month, or whatever, and it all kind of plugs into that. So the more involvement we show, the more likely it is for NI to act on it. Yeah, right?